Okay, hello everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. Yeah, sorry I started a little late today, but that's okay. Let's see. Had some technical difficulties, but looks like we're on and everything's cool. And hey, somebody's watching. Well, whoever you are, thank you so much for tuning in. So, lots of stuff to actually talk about today. We've got tons and tons of things happening out there in the news and in the world. Um, Same as last time. I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to adopt this format going forward. It's just, I have a bunch of prepared material and subjects and things that I want to talk about. And then at the end of this stream, the last, 20 or 30 minutes or so, probably more like 30 minutes, I'll address any questions that you guys have, if there are any. So if you have something you want me to talk about, go ahead and just leave it in a comment, and we'll get to it. So, first off, let's look at what we got here. This is the thing that we had from last week. Our big, hideous, evil plague demon thing. Let me put on my old man glasses first. What can I say? I'm old. I gotta wear reading glasses now. It sucks. But, happens to the best of us. So, we'll just continue on with this guy. This sort of, Nurgle demon-looking thing. Although that's not how it, that's not what it was intended. It kind of looks like something from Warhammer 40,000, And we'll start talking about what we were talking about. So, lots of shit happening. I want to start off a little bit with some more happenings going on with the continuing protests, Black Lives Matter protests, and some other things. And then we'll get into some fun stuff. I want to look at some memes and things like that. And then towards the end, we'll talk about the election and, the pandemic, of course, because you can't have a live stream during a pandemic without talking about the pandemic. So, what do we got here? Oh yeah, hey, someone is watching. Thank you so much, whoever you are who is watching. So let's get started here. So we have seen in Oregon that the federal officers who are deployed there, against the wishes of the mayor and especially the governor, they've been pulled out for the most part. And since they've been gone, we've gone back to generally peaceful protests in Oregon. And it's almost kind of like having those guys there just sort of escalated the situation. And, so what have we learned from this? Right? They're gone now, and basically what's going on? Well, the president has threatened to send these people to other cities out there, and pretty much every city that he's mentioned is a city that's run in a blue state, basically. He's threatened to send them to Chicago, to, New York, and Detroit, places like that, right? Why is he sending them to those places when there are Black Lives Matter protests all over the country, including red states like Texas? The last stream we had was all about Garrett Foster in Texas, and who was like murdered and stuff like that. So it's like, these protests are not just happening in blue states. So how come he's only sending them to blue states? Number one, why is it? I mean, I'm assuming this is a political thing. It's to make him look tough. It's to score some brownie points with his base, because really he has no control over the situation, and things are just getting worse and worse and worse for him on a daily basis now. And so what's it all about? He's trying to basically win back the narrative. He's trying to throw some meat to his base, who actually, not only do they not mind these cops going and brutalizing protesters, they actually support it, they actually want it. That's one thing that we got to remember, right? The 50% of Trump supporters who are deplorables, those deplorables, Hillary Clinton's deplorables, I guess. You know, if you remember, she said, yeah, roughly 50% of them are beyond saving, right? They seem to be, you know, on board with this. You know, these are the people that we, as we mentioned before, have spent the last 40 years, you know, screaming that the sky's falling and that, you know, federal officers were going to one day come and take away their guns and throw people in prison without trials and all this stuff and throw us into a fucking fascist state. Right. These are those people. And now that Trump's actually taking steps in that direction, Trump is actually grabbing people and, you know, off the street and not reading them their rights. And for people who are not even committing crimes, you know, stuff like that one guy on the bike who, like, you know, we showed the video last time, the guy on the bike who was tackled by 6 people. Yeah, right. They're not only, like, not standing up against this, they're actually, like, actively supporting it. You know, and you can find it online. People, like, basically, anytime one of these guys does something wrong, there's always going to be these supporters that jump out. And it's just, you know, so I'm not surprised by that. But what surprises me is that the people that are, you know, these supporters, they're actually, like, you know, the people defending them are the ones who should be out there in the street fighting against them, you know. Like, ideologically, they're the ones that should be out there fighting in the street. And that kind of brings me to one thing I want to talk about was the Bundy Ranch guys, if you remember that. And we actually talked about this in the last you know, stream, right? But there's been a development, and what it is that the guy, I think his name's Amon Bundy. He's the son of Cliven Bundy, right? Has actually come out as a BLM supporter, right? Over the last, I think it was a couple of days ago, he went on the internet, made a video, and kind of shocked a lot of conservatives because he seemed to take the side of, you know, BLM, saying that the police should be defunded, right? And that they've gone too far and stuff like that. Now, I don't understand why people are shocked by that, right? Because ideologically, that's where this guy stands, right? So if you don't remember the whole thing with Cliven Bundy, we'll just give a really, really quick high-level recap. And I'm pretty sure I've got most of the facts straight on this, but, you know, I could be wrong, so if I'm wrong, just leave a note or something in the thing. But basically what's happening is that, you know, what happened is that there was this guy, Cliven Bundy, was a rancher in, I think in, like, Oregon or something, I don't know, up around there somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where he's from. And anyway, yeah, I think it was Oregon. So anyway, Cliven Bundy is one of those sovereign citizen kind of guys who does not believe in the, you know, authority of the federal government. You know, they're sort of like libertarian, like, people that, you know, it's sort of like when libertarians pretend to be lawyers and they just have, like, these wacky ideas about the law, and they watch all these weird-ass videos where they claim that, like, maritime law supersedes, like, civil law and other things, and all of these, like, weird little, like, they're like hacks, like cheat codes and shit to the law that have absolutely no basis in fucking reality to them. We should do a video on it one of these days. It's, yeah, the sovereign citizen thing, especially in regards to the laws, it's pretty freaking hilarious. You see these guys in, like, courtrooms and stuff saying all this, like, ridiculous stuff that just has no fucking basis in reality, thinking that they just got off, when in real life, like, you know, they just made the situation 20 times worse for themselves. You know, they're the kind of people that they ride around with these, like, they ride around with these license plates that they print out themselves, saying that, you know, this vehicle is not subject to the United States government, blah, 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 and all this other shit, right? Anyway, so, his whole thing was that, you know, they were illegally grazing on federal land, and there was all this legal back and forth for basically years, and it all accumulated in his sons going and occupying this federal building. Basically, they occupied this headquarters of the Bureau of Land Management in Oregon, I think. And but when I say occupied, they didn't occupy it the way that liberal progressive protesters will go occupy something. Like, they showed up with weapons and forced all the employees to leave at gunpoint and held this place for 40 days. Right? That's what they did. So when liberals and progressives and Black Lives Matter people go occupy a building, right? What they do is they break in and they start singing songs and they do a sit-in and they like chain themselves to the wall and shit like that. And that's what they mean when they say occupy, occupy Wall Street. That's what they're talking about here. Occupy Wall Street was just like a bunch of kids just went and sat on the ground at Wall Street and refused to leave. These guys actually occupied it like a military force with guns, and basically kicked everybody out and said, get the fuck out of here, we're going to shoot you. And for 40 days nobody did anything. The FBI and the ATF and those guys just sort of surrounded the place, and they wisely, in my opinion, didn't want to provoke an armed confrontation, because that's the last thing you want to do, because then they'd be forced to kill them all. But at the same time, they allowed these guys to get their mail. They allowed people to fucking leave and like come back. You know what I mean? Like, a couple of times when people would leave, they like didn't take the opportunity to go arrest them, shit like that. And while it was happening, the guy Cliven Bundy was going on fucking TV, and like getting on talk shows and all this other shit, and like people were giving him airtime so that he could go and plead his case, right? So all of that shit was happening, and it finally ended after 40 days. Like, people started turning themselves in and stuff like that, so that's fine. And finally, they ended up having to shoot somebody, because there was a guy that wouldn't surrender, and I can't remember his name exactly, but basically how it went is they finally decided to start arresting these people when they would try to sneak out or whatever. And this one dude basically had a gun on him, and he reached for it, and they had to shoot him. And it was just like, oh, they forced him to fucking shoot him. So where am I going with this? Right? This whole thing, where am I going with this? Well, basically, yeah, that guy, that's how did we get on this again? Oh yeah, so Amon Bundy, the guy that ran that Bundy Ranch standoff thing and occupation and all that shit, has come out in the, on the side of Black Lives Matter. And that's making conservatives lose their minds and stuff online. And they're calling him a traitor and all this other shit. And it's like, well, it matches his ideology, number one. Because, first off, this guy's had run-ins with the law, right? So it's like, yeah, of course he's not going to take the police side. Secondly, I don't think anybody out there is, convinced that, Amon Bundy or his supporters actually give a shit about Black Lives Matter. Of course they fucking don't. You don't actually think those people do. I mean, they're basically, I'm not going to call them racist, those guys, but let's just say the Venn diagram for their beliefs overlaps the alt-right in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? But, we didn't really see very much in the way of, I think there were some racist comments from Cliven Bundy himself. I mean, I think he said some shit about slavery and something like that. I can't remember exactly, But so it's like, yeah, nobody's convinced that this dude actually gives a fuck about black people or BLM, but he aligns with them politically because he believes in defunding the police, and that matches with his ideology, and and it should. So people wonder, that kind of brings us to the idea, like, well, what does it mean when you say defund the police? Like, what are you talking about, right? Because I think a lot of people are confused, because they, and I think this is actually a problem with the messaging from BLM, right? And it's a problem that movements on the left tend to have, is that they're not coherent. And what I mean by that is they don't have unified coherent messaging, because movements on the left tend to be decentralized. There is no leader of BLM, you know. There are people who were, there wasn't even really a founder. There were people who were there in the beginning, you know, but they're not the leaders of the movement, right? There is no leader. They do that on purpose. They make it decentralized like that on purpose, so that there is no charismatic person which everything depends on, you know. And I think that's actually kind of a good move, because what that does is that it doesn't leave a target for the people who oppose them. Because what would happen, you know, like, for example, the civil rights movement had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? Well, what would happen if the civil rights movement in that form were to come out today? You know, immediately people would start attacking Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and they'd start digging up all the bad things in his past, and then all of a sudden you'd find out that he cheated on his wife or whatever, or he had a conviction for this or that, 30 years ago or some shit, and it would discredit the movement, right? And that's part of the reason why BLM doesn't have a leader like that, because that way it just removes that avenue of attack. You can't discredit the entire movement because of the faults of one person. And secondly, because that way also, if that leader were to get assassinated, then it doesn't kill the movement. That's another thing that happens a lot, right? Another reason why they purposely made it decentralized, so it's not open to that type of attack, right? And it becomes more of an ideology, less of an organization. And it's much harder to destroy an ideology than it is to destroy an organization. An organization, you can raid an organization, you can cut its funding, you can get its leaders and put its leaders in prison, stuff like that. An ideology, once it takes root, it's very, very hard to stamp that out. I mean, just look at fucking National Socialism. Look at white identity, or something like that, or white supremacism. Yeah, it's fucking impossible. It's like we haven't been able to fucking get rid of it in, like, how long has it been since World War II? Like, what, 70 years now? Right? 80 years, going on 80 years almost. It's like, and we're still dealing with these fucking people because the ideology has taken root. And it's like, you can't kill an idea. You can only try to fight against it with better ideas. And it's like, if the fucking people that, that's kind of how it works, right? You can't just, like, stomp out a fucking ideology like this without, killing everybody, right? I mean, I guess you could do that. I guess you could get everybody who believes in something and just kill all of them, but, that's not a viable solution in this country, right? Sorry if you're hearing noises and shit from outside. It's just, if I don't leave the window open in here, it gets really hot. So, you might be hearing cars and stuff because my neighbors are assholes. But, what are you going to do? Anyway, so how do we get on all this? So, yeah, so what does it mean exactly? Now, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here. What does it mean exactly when they say defund the police? Because this is why this guy, Cliven Bundy, is on the side of BLM. Because he specifically said that in his video, that he is supporting the idea of defunding the police, which kind of shows that it's not just something that, people on the left are exclusively supporting. Like, this dude is as right-wing as they fucking come, right? So why does he support this, left-wing idea, right? And I think what it is that people get scared when you say that. People get scared when you say defund the police because they don't really know what it means. And that's, like I was saying, a fault of BLM, because BLM has not effectively communicated what that phrase means, right? So what ends up happening is that now it means lots of different things to lots of different people. There are people out there that actually do want to cut funding for the police 100% and just completely disband them, but I don't think that anybody out there with a brain actually thinks that's a viable solution. Nobody is actually saying, okay, we'll just have no policing at all whatsoever, because we need it. You know, we need, whether you like it or not, the reality is crime is a real problem in this country. There is such thing as real crime in this country. You know, there's such thing as rapists and murderers and thieves and drug dealers and fucking guys with chainsaws and shit like that out there. Right, serial killers and shit like that. That's real, and you really do need an organization that can investigate and stop those types of things, right? So, of course, there's going to be some kind of policing, you know. So it doesn't really mean eliminate all policing. What it means is community control of policing, right? So first off, what happens when, you know, they call the cops for pretty much any problem there is, you know, and police are not just out there defending, you know, and helping people from, you know, stopping bank robbers and shit like that, and like, you know, drug dealers and all that other shit. They're doing things like wellness checks, right? You know, you call the police, hey, no one has heard from my mother in 2 weeks. Could you send somebody over to do a wellness check? Right. And then, you know, so what happens? The cops show up and blah, 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 and then some shit happens and they end up shooting somebody. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the problem. It's like, well, the police shouldn't be doing stuff like wellness checks in the first place. There should be another group of people, you know, if it's a situation where there should be no call for force, then the cops shouldn't be doing it. You know what I mean? Cops should not be doing wellness checks on people. You know, if there's somebody who's mentally ill, you know, you call the police one reason or another. Guys like, you know, a mentally ill person is fucking having an episode, you know, whatever. And the guy's not really hurting anybody, but he's kind of out of control, and maybe he's like smashing some property, shit like that, right? So what do? They call the police. Well, the cops only have one, you know, they only have one method to deal with anything, and that's, you know, handcuff the guy, right? So, and this is what ends up happening. And, you know, how many of these videos are you seeing of police who are, you know, show up at a place and there's like a person who may be autistic or like, you know, mentally handicapped or something like that, and he's just, you know, having a crazy episode, right? Maybe, you know, maybe getting a little violent or something like that, and then the police end up beating the crap out of him and tasing him until he like dies of a heart attack. And then everybody goes, why did they do that? Well, because they only have one, you know, that's their weapon. They only have one tool. Their tool is violence, because that's what they're trained for. They're trained to go after criminals. They're trained to like stop drug dealers and violent and people who will put them in danger. And that's how they're trained. They're trained to say that everybody they come across could potentially take their life. And it's better to be excessive and survive than to get injured or killed, right? This is what they're training them for. So, you know, maybe we don't need to be calling them when there's like a mentally ill person having an episode. Maybe there should be another organization that you call, people who are trained, right? You know, who are trained to deal with guys like that. And even if it gets a little violent, maybe they're trained to like, you know, detain people or hold them or something like that without killing them, right? And then if it gets too crazy and they can't handle it, maybe then you call the cops. You know, maybe that's what, you know, you should be doing with this instead of instantly calling the police to handle every single fucking little problem. You know, what about things like drug use, right? You get kids like, you know, for example, stuff that happened around here all the time. You know, teenagers would be having a party. People will call the cops on them to shut them down. Well, why? Why do you need cops to show up? You know, cops who are armed and at any given time might end up beating the crap out of somebody, right? I can't even tell you, as a kid growing up, a teenager, how many times I've been in that situation where, you know, you have police hovering over you because you're at a party and there's beer there. And who bought you this beer? And you won't say. You know, it's sort of like having like 6 or 7 cops kind of hovering around you looking for any excuse to just, you know, pound you into the fucking dirt. right, for giving them any kind of, it's really sketchy. And fucking, you don't know what's gonna happen, and you don't know if you're gonna say something wrong that just sets this fucking guy off, and you just, and he just like decides to take it out on your fucking face, and it's like, well, why is that even a thing? How come you don't just have, you know, guys come who shut it down, and fucking, if you don't, and then like give you a ticket if you don't fucking, you know what I mean? Like, why do you have to have people who are prepared for lethal force to do shit like that, where it's like a situation that's not dangerous? You know, it's ridiculous, and that's what people, I think, that's what really people mean. That's kind of like what we're talking about when you say defund the police, right? You shouldn't have to worry about a cop blowing you away when you get pulled over. If you're just a normal person, you're not breaking any laws. If you get pulled over for whatever, and then the police officer wants to check you for a DUI or something like that, that's fine. And as long as you're not being violent, you shouldn't have to worry about a cop, getting pissed off and fucking shooting you in the head and then lying about it. Because you know that the thing is that nothing will happen to the guy. If that happens, 9 times out of 10, what'll happen is that his union will go to bat for him. He'll get suspended with pay for a couple of days, right? And then fucking the investigation will come back saying that he's justified. And you and your family will have, if you're still alive, right, you will have no recourse, no way of, any kind of recourse at all. I mean, you could try to sue the city, but fucking good luck with that, right? And they know it. They know it, and they act like it, right? They basically know that they can do anything they fucking want, and there's really nothing that you can fucking do about it whatsoever, right? And they know that they will not be held accountable for anything. So one thing that, I think kind of bears this out is that there was a video that came out a little while ago of George Floyd, right? And it was the body cameras of him getting basically pulled over for the first time, right? And this is making the rounds in right-wing social media right now, because they're basically what's going on is that the guy is like starts begging for his life, essentially, right? And of course everybody in the right-wing social media sphere is blaming him for what happens, because like, see, he's not obeying directions, right? But what's happening, if you watch it, I don't want to put it on because, probably get kicked, right? Because I'm pretty sure that video is probably copyrighted by somebody by now. But, I'll put a link to it in the thing after the stream is over. Basically, what ends up happening is that the guy, George Floyd, starts, he's completely following directions. He's got his hands on the wheel. He's following directions, right? And he starts crying. Basically just starts begging, please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me, And it's like, and you're watching it, and the thing is, I'm watching this guy's a big guy, right? He's the kind of person that should not have to be afraid of anybody, and I doubt that in any situation whatsoever, if it was just some normal person fucking with him, this isn't how you would see him react. But you can tell that this dude had this experience before, right? Like, why does somebody start, why would you act the way he acts? Like, he basically, like, immediately goes into pleading. Once it becomes obvious that they're going to arrest him, he immediately starts pleading, saying, okay, I didn't do anything, fine, I'll do whatever you want, please don't shoot me, please, I'm begging you, right? And he's, like, on the verge of, like, tears, like, come on, man, I'm begging you, please, I didn't do it, whatever, right? And why would you do that? It's because he basically knew that he was fucked. He knew he was fucked, and he knew he was in danger. And he knew that his chances of survival, were not 100%. And it turns out that George Floyd was correct. Turns out he was correct, and they ended up fucking killing him, Now, it's, you know, the narrative from the right wing is that it was all his fault. Well, it's like, you know, the thing about that is it just keeps fucking happening over and over and over again, right? Keeps happening over and over. You know, it's like you could say that, yeah, if this was a rare occurrence, if it was rare that someone who gets pulled over by the police ends up dead, then yeah, maybe you could say. But in real life, it's just like constantly. It's like, how many fucking times does it have to happen? How many times does the police have to kill somebody who's unarmed and, you know, wasn't really committing any crimes? Like, how many times does that have to happen before you realize there's a problem, you know? And that's what it is, man. Like, I think that video basically strengthens the resolve of, you know, it should strengthen the resolve of everybody who's involved in Black Lives Matter and is out there protesting police brutality, because it fucking shows, like, you know, here's a guy that, like, police brutality was part of his everyday existence, you know. He had experience with it before. He basically knew that he was gonna, you know, get his ass beat at the least and quite possibly be murdered. And what ended up happening is that he ended up getting murdered. Right? So it's like, you know, I don't see how anybody could take that video and spin it as how, like, you know, calling him, because that's what they're doing. The people in on Facebook and shit like that and on Reddit and all that, they're basically taking it and calling him a coward and all this other stuff, you know, and like fucking blaming him for not like obeying it. You know, he's just, look at him, he's just this fucking crybaby, blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, man, you know, talk about, I don't know, man, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And you know, if it was a white person, they'd be ready to fucking, like, you know, take to the streets themselves. If it was a white person, you'd be seeing, you know, fucking armed armed fucking conservative protesters capturing a federal building in Minneapolis. That's what you'd be seeing, you know. And that kind of makes me, you know, kind of makes me wonder. It's like, so another picture kind of surfaced of BLM protesters using shields, right? Kind of like Spartans, you know. And this actually, I just saw this today. I don't know how old this picture is, but yeah, like, there's a video out there of BLM protesters with shields, locking their shields like they're Romans or Spartans or something, and using that to protect themselves from rubber bullets and sandbags and that kind of thing. And then, you know, there was another part of the video where a couple of riot cops went up and started beating on the shields and they couldn't get through. And it just sort of kind of shows this escalation where, like, and the thing is, on the chatter on Reddit today was very mixed. Some people were applauding this, saying it was great. Personally, I think it's fucking awesome. And I'm surprised they haven't done it earlier, to be honest. Like, I mean, shit, you've seen, like, pictures of the, you know, the wall of moms and all that, and how they're just getting shot in the face with rubber bullets and stuff like that. Right? That's definitely a fucking thing. You know, I'd show you a picture of that, but it's very gory, so, you know, I'll link to it in the bottom. But there's this one picture of this old lady. She's got to be at least 60. Big ass fucking welt in the middle of her forehead where a fucking cop shot her in the face with a rubber bullet. Fucked her up. Surprised she didn't die, to be honest. It was like this huge, like blood and all this other fucking, it's like, god damn, man, like, you know. And this is like an old lady who's like not violent in any fucking way whatsoever, you know. And it's, so I'm glad that they're using shields. I mean, personally, I wouldn't be out there without full armor. You know, I wouldn't be out there without, like, face coverings and some kind of protective chest armor, because, you know, when they say, like, these rounds are not lethal, it's like, no, they're not. It's not that they're not lethal, it's that they're less than lethal. And that's what they call them. You know, rubber bullets, things like that, they call them less than lethal rounds. Right. Because they can still kill you, you know. And there's been people who are dead now because the cops shot them with a sandbag in the chest and it caused them to have a heart attack, or they got shot in the head or something and it fucking killed them. right? So anyway, um, but it kind of makes me think like, okay, so these guys have shields and all that stuff. Would this be happening if the BLM protesters were armed? You know, let's say they came out there with Black Panther style, full on shotguns, pistols, all that stuff. In a state where they were, say, you were allowed to carry these things. What do you think would have happened? What do you think would have happened? See, Michigan, I don't know if you remember about 2, 3 months ago, once the lockdown orders came into, effect, a bunch of right-wingers show up, basically took over City Hall with guns, and not only flouted the mask orders, but sat there screaming and yelling and basically threatening the legislature there. It was like the state capitol building in Michigan. Threatening them, saying, we're not going to wear our masks, we're not going to be locked down, blah, 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 blah. What happened to those guys? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Did the police come in and just start fucking, like, beating the shit out of them? No. Okay, did Trump send a bunch of fucking, unidentified federal troops to just start randomly fucking kidnapping them and throwing them into unmarked vans and then taking them who knows where? No. Nothing like that happened to them at all. In fact, nothing happened to them whatsoever. Nobody did shit. Now, was it because they were right-wingers and the police are generally sympathetic to them? Or was it more likely because they were armed to the teeth? Maybe the Black Lives Matter movement should take some lessons from that. Now, personally, I'm kind of glad that they're not. I'm glad that the BLM people are not showing up with weapons, armed with guns and stuff like that. And the reason why is because I don't think that the establishment is going to allow that. And I think if they did, we would see some shootouts and a lot of people would die. And that's why I'm glad they're not doing it. Because I'm pretty sure that law, that tolerance for protesters being armed doesn't go both ways. I'm pretty sure that really that only applies to right-wing protesters, right-wing militants. Right-wingers are allowed to show up with guns and, break the law and occupy buildings for 40 days and all that stuff, and nobody cares because they're right-wing and the establishment is sympathetic towards them. Right. I don't think that if BLM were to show up with guns, right, and try to, we're taking this building now, I don't think that would last 5 fucking minutes. I think they would be surrounded by fucking, right, by the SWAT team, right, and I think Donald Trump himself would be calling for them all to be executed as terrorists. And I think the right wing in this country would go nuts calling them terrorists. And I think that it would end in a fucking massive slaughter. Because right-wingers in this country get away with shit that us on the left don't. That's just how it is. That's how it's been for a long time in this country. The right-wingers get away with fucking everything. And left-wing protesters, they don't get, left-wingers don't. The left-wing protesters and all that stuff, they get fucking brutalized, and that's just how it fucking is, man. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they might push them a little too far, and you might actually see guys showing up with guns. And if that happens, fucking God help them. I hope it doesn't end badly, and I personally hope it doesn't go that far. Because I believe in peaceful protests, and I believe that these videos of people getting injured does more for the cause than showing up with weapons ever will. And that's just, that's kind of the truth. It's sort of like people see you being oppressed, right? When videos and pictures of you being oppressed by the cops, by the establishment gets out there, that does more to change hearts and minds than, 100 guys with shotguns standing around does. That just scares people. And you don't want to scare people. You want people to be scared by your opposition, not you, right? So that's why I'm kind of glad that they're not doing that, and they're actually keeping it non-lethal, and they're keeping it, you know, peaceful for the most part, right? That's what it is, and they're not instigating violence and stuff like that, and that's how I hope they keep it like that. I hope they keep it like that, and I hope they don't learn the wrong lessons, you know, from these fucking like armed and you're already kind of starting to see armed protesters in places like Texas and stuff like that. You know, Garrett Foster, he was armed, that kind of thing. And I'm really hoping that the wider BLM movement doesn't adopt that, because it's gonna fucking backfire. I'm calling it right now. That shit's gonna backfire. So anyway, so there was some stuff, you know, when getting back to defunding the police, you know, and what that means and all that stuff. It's not just, you know, taking some of the responsibility away from the cops for things like wellness checks or that kind of thing. It's also, we need to really reform the criminal justice system in this country, like a lot. You know, we have way too many people in prison. Oh, excuse me. Way too many people in prison. Hang on, I gotta get some water. Oy, burping up here. Okay, where was I? Okay. Yeah, we need to reform the criminal justice system, because we got too many people in prison for really stupid things. You know, we in this country incarcerate a much larger proportion of our population than pretty much every other country on Earth. I think China is a close second to us, you know, but it's kind of like us and then China for how many people we incarcerate, right? I don't know if they're ahead of us or what, but pretty sure that we're number one in this regard. And it's because we have very draconian laws in a lot of the parts of this country, which result in people getting put away for very long sentences for stupid fucking things. So, for example, there was a guy, and I'm going to go to a link here, right? This is a guy here. Let me kind of show you what I got. Turn on my left monitor. This guy was, okay. God damn it. I hate these fucking ads. How do I get rid of this fucking thing? Anyway. Alright, so this guy here, man was sentenced to life in prison for selling $30 of marijuana, will be freed. Basically, this dude, right, I'd see his picture, but that ad's gonna pop down, so whatever. Sold about 0.68 grams of marijuana back in like 2008. 0.69 grams of marijuana, right? And because he had a couple of priors, they got a life sentence on him for that. And his other crimes before this were like, you know, mostly non-violent. I think he like did an armed robbery in like the 80s or something like that, and then a couple of other minor infractions. And basically because of this was like, you know, they have this law that, here, let me close this guy, right? This law that basically meant that they could, you know, throw him away for the rest of his fucking life. Like, at first he got a 15-year sentence, right? And what it is that it's called the habitual offender law. And that means that you can impose stricter sentences on people who have multiple offenses, right? So he got 15 years in prison, and then in a few years later, they upped it to fucking life in prison while he was serving that sentence, right? Can you fucking imagine? Can you imagine? So you sell, I mean, that's not even a full gram, so that's like, it's like that much, right? Not very much at all. Can you imagine going to prison for the rest of your life for selling weed? You know? And it's like, then, you know, while you're in prison, other states around the country start legalizing the thing that you are in prison for the rest of your life for. Can you fucking imagine that shit? And, you know, this is what we need to reform. Stuff like this, you know. There's a very similar law in California, right? Um, Called the three strikes and you're out law in California. And what it is if you get 3 felonies, no matter what they are, then you could potentially, that third one, you could potentially go to prison for the rest of your life. And so there's stories of people in California going to prison for shoplifting, you know, because it's like a felony. One guy went to prison for stealing a piece of pizza off of somebody's fucking, like, plate. There's like a homeless guy, and there was like people eating outside, and he like stole some pizza and ran away with it because he was hungry, right? And they fucking, they threw him in fucking prison for the rest of his life for that shit, right? It's like, and that's the kind of stuff we got to change, but and then the reason for that, it's because these laws originally are supposed to be putting away, they were designed for putting away gang members and stuff like that, habitual criminals. People who like keep getting busted for the same thing over and over and over. And it was supposed to be a deterrent to stop that kind of, career criminal kind of, especially violent crimes. Somebody convicted for multiple rapes or multiple robberies or something like that. But what ends up happening is that it doesn't deter crime, and people end up going to prison for really stupid things because of it, and you just see like all kinds of cases like that. There's another one where a guy went to life in prison for stealing some fucking hedge clippers. This is true shit too. Oh god, I hate these, man. How do I get rid of this shit? Okay, get out of here. Okay, he got life for stealing hedge clippers. The Louisiana Supreme Court says it's a fair sentence. This is some crazy shit too, right? Basically, this was a guy, the story here was that there was a dude who was pulled over, right, who had some hedge clippers in the back of his truck that looked like some that got stolen, okay? And what it was is that he admitted that he went into this carport because he was out of gas and he was looking for a gas can, right? He didn't admit to stealing the hedge clippers, and that actually ended up with him, that was enough. Him just admitting being at the scene was enough to get him convicted, and he went to prison for the rest of his fucking life for stealing some goddamn hedge clippers. Ridiculous. And the thing is, even if you are a habitual criminal, right? Even if you are somebody that just makes a career out of crime or whatever, you shouldn't be going to fucking prison for something so stupid for the rest of your life. There should be clauses, if you want to keep these types of laws, right, then they need to be amended so that they make sense, so that they're logical, so that they actually are putting away violent offenders and gang members and, like, mafia guys and that kind of shit, and not people like this. This should be a fine at most. You stole some hedge clippers, right? You have to pay a fucking fine and do community service. That's what that should be. You shouldn't be in prison for the rest of your fucking life because you stole some goddamn hedge clippers. I mean, that's seriously, it's ridiculous. And that's what's wrong with our criminal justice system. Shit like that. That's what they mean when they say defund the police, right? It also means fix these fucking laws that are throwing people in jail for ridiculous fucking, because we got too many people in jail. First off, everyone in jail for any marijuana related crime should be let out immediately. Okay? You shouldn't be in prison for shit that's legal in another state, right? Like, especially when it comes to something like possession, right? If it's legal to possess in one state, it should be legal to possess in all the states. It doesn't fucking matter what it is. It's like, especially when it comes to a drug, and you shouldn't be serving 5, 10, 15 years, for doing some shit that one state over is free, is like legal. There's something wrong with that. It's important that we have a unified approach to these things, and you can have different laws in different parts of the country. You can say, okay, well, this one is legal here, this one's legal there, blah, blah, blah. Like you have that when it comes to gun laws, in the country, right? Some parts of the country you're allowed to own, you know, certain types of firearms, and other ones you're not, and you're allowed to carry them openly, and you're allowed to blah 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 or whatever, or you can do private sales. I don't even know, you know. There's all kinds of different laws when it comes to these things, and that's fine. You can have that, but the punishments should not be so ridiculous that you shouldn't be going to prison for the rest of your fucking life for shit that's like legal in other parts of the country. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, these things need to be thought out, like, you know, thought out well, and they need to be, you know, the effects on wider society need to be taken into account when it comes for these things, when it comes to shit like this, right? Seriously, you know, I don't know. It should be, I don't know. I personally think drug possession should just be a ticket everywhere, and it's not like that. You know, it's like it's really strict in some parts of the South. You know, Louisiana, Texas, stuff like that. It's extremely strict. You can go to prison for 99 years in Louisiana for having like a gram of like weed, which is a fucking joke. It's absolutely fucking like that's longer than someone convicted of rape gets in Louisiana. It's seriously fucking right. And like, why? Why is it so strict? You know, why? I don't know. I mean, some people think they know. They think it's because, you know, black people smoke weed more or something like that, and that's why it was enacted that way. Which in real life, it's not like that. In real life, you know, black people and white people smoke marijuana at the same rate, right? But maybe not when that law was enacted. Maybe when that law was enacted back in the fucking 50s or something, it was just another way of throwing black people in jail. That's probably it. And that's another aspect when it comes to defunding the police, right? Seems like a lot of these laws are basically just roundabout ways of throwing black people in jail, right? You know, an example of that is harsher sentences for crack cocaine and compared to powdered cocaine. You know, if you have the same amount of crack cocaine and powder cocaine in many places in this country, you know, the crack cocaine gets you a much harsher sentence. And it's like, why? How come? What's the difference? Well, because black people use crack cocaine and white people use powder cocaine, and that's why. That's really the only fucking reason why there's this disparity in sentencing, you know. And it's like, that's bullshit. It should be the same, right? Because it's both essentially the same fucking drug, you know, pretty much. And it's just, it's shit like that. That's what the people are talking about when they say defund the police. You know, it's like, defund the police, right? Fix our broken fucking criminal justice fucking system. Another thing is like demilitarize the police. That's another thing when they say defund the police, because now we have police departments with tanks and drones and fucking high-tech listening equipment and battering rams and all of this shit, and you know, they just have to have an excuse to use it, and it just, you know, that's why you're seeing like all these protests with these fucking cops showing up in like armored personnel carriers and stuff like that. Why the fuck does a cop need something like that? You know, I'm gonna look up a picture of this so I can show it to you. Police tank. Right. And let's see here. What is this thing? Police tank. Police used armored vehicle to serve warrant. Here we go. Look at this fucking thing. Oh, wait, it's making me watch an ad. Okay, there we go. Here we go. This is urban Milwaukee. Alright. And let me turn on my monitor here. Police used armored vehicle to serve warrants. Look at this fucking thing. What? I'm not even going to read what this is about. Why do they have this? What possible reason do they have this? I mean, are they afraid that they're going to be attacked by fucking, what, an army or something? Are they afraid that like a fucking entire like squad of like drug dealers armed with submachine guns is going to show up and get in a shootout with them? What is the possible use for this thing that they have? Are they going to like break through a fucking wall with it? Like, there's no reason to have that at all. You know, this armored that's what that is. This is an armored personnel carrier. You know, it's like, why do they have that? Why do they have that? Why do they have like you know, these fucking armor-piercing bullets? Why do they have like drones that can see through walls and shit like that? You know, it's because it's like the fucking military-industrial complex. You know, they've they've basically expanded out, and now the police are new customers, right? They've sold all the shit that they can sell to the fucking Pentagon, right? And now they need new customers, and it's like, oh look, there's all these police departments around the country. Let's sell them fucking tanks. And that's what it is. So why do they need that shit? How much does that shit cost? Number one, you know, and why do they fucking need it? Why don't we sell all that crap and take the money and use it to set up some drug rehabilitation programs and some fucking like adult literacy programs and job training things, and maybe attack the fucking roots of crime? Why don't we do that instead of like, you know, sending these guys out to just fucking murder everybody whenever something goes wrong? I mean, Jesus Christ. So I don't know, man. This is what people are talking about when they say, you know, when they say this stuff, right? And it's really, you know, it's really kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm in a bubble. Maybe I'm in a right-wing bubble, because all I see are people, you know, not understanding the message and calling BLM protesters terrorists, right? And shit like that, when in real life they're not terrorists. You know, they're basically, as far as I'm concerned, these people are heroes. These people that are out there in Portland and all the other cities around this country, you know, putting themselves in danger, right? That's what they're doing. Like, you know, not just like from like fucking the pandemic and stuff like that, you know, because when you're out there around a bunch of people, you can, you know, let's not forget the pandemic, you can still basically catch this disease and die. But, you know, every time they go out there and stand up in front of the cops, you know, to protest, they're basically putting their lives in the line, because at any given moment, you know, some fucking one of these police officers might just get a little too pissed off and decide to take it out on them and either beat the living crap out of them or fucking shoot them. And so these people are basically like putting themselves in danger. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they're heroes. You know, people say shit like, oh, the military, they're out there fighting for your rights every day and you should respect them. You know, it's like, well, these fucking people are out here fighting for my rights. They're actually fighting for my rights. You know, people in the military going over to Iraq and shit like that, they're not fighting for my fucking rights. You know, they're fighting terrorists and shit or whatever, I don't know, but they're not fighting for my rights. Right? Nothing that happens over there has anything to do with my rights here in this country whatsoever. Okay, I mean, what are they fucking afraid of? I don't know. That's like basically a false fucking narrative right there. You know, they're defending your rights so that you have the right to say this shit. No, they're fucking not. You know, and I'm not saying this to like disparage any soldiers either. I'm not. You know, I support the military. Fucking dad's in the military, right? Well, he was for, you know, 40 years and shit, right? I'm not like trying to insult the military at all. I support them 100%, but, you know, them going over to Afghanistan and shit, they're not fighting for my rights, right? They're fighting against terrorists and stuff. That has nothing to do with my right for free assembly, all right? It doesn't. It doesn't have anything to do with my right for free speech. It doesn't have anything to do with my right to vote. You know, these people in Portland and in fucking, you know, other cities around this country going out there and protesting against police brutality and against fucking like Donald Trump's secret fucking police and his, you know, and his authoritarian tendencies. Those are the people fighting for my fucking rights right here, right? So anyway, I don't know, man. Moving on a little bit, let's see, there was this one story I wanted to talk about. Let's see, do we got any comments? Oh, we got a comment. Cody, what's up? I'm not able to watch this later. I'm going back to school soon. We'll have time. Oh, yeah, no problem, Cody. It's cool. Thanks for, you know, stopping in and stuff. You know, if you do, hey, if you do have anything you want me to talk about, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I'll talk about it at the end of the stream. So, anyhow, but good to see you, Cody. Thanks for stopping by. So, there was one thing I wanted to talk about here, and it was this story, right? Because what's going on here is that our president, the leader of our country, is telling us that it is safe enough for our kids to go back to school. And so a lot of school districts around the country are trying to make it work. You know, they're trying to make it work. They're trying to get people to go back to school, right? And it doesn't seem to be happening very much at all. And so this story came out, which was in Georgia, and what it was a girl. Her name is Hannah Walters. Let me open up my thing here. Okay, left monitor. Hannah Walters basically went to school, and I'm sure you've probably heard about this. And what's going on is that she and some friends decided to take some pictures and video of all the kids that are in her school, and showing that they are not wearing masks at all. Right, let's see if I can actually find oh, it's not going to let me skip through it, of course. Of course it's fucking not. It's not going to let me skip through it and show you the picture of all the kids in the fucking school with their masks on. Because, you know, K911 fucking ABC News, they have to be dicks, and they don't have... Anyway, whatever, alright. So, anyway, so what ended up happening is that Georgia, the school that she was at, instead of enforcing a mask policy, decided they were going to suspend the student. And this hit the news, and it was a big deal, right? And it looks like that her suspension has been reversed because, you know, the school district still doesn't know how social media works, right? Because the minute you try to, like, you know, silence things on social media, they go viral. That's how it works. You know, if you want shit to go viral on social media, it never fucking does. But if you try to prevent something from going viral on social media, then it suddenly gets all over the place, and that's just how it fucking works. So anyway, god damn it, they're gonna make me watch this video in order to see the picture, aren't they? I don't know. Well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna watch the video. But anyhow, that's bad shit, you know. And that just kind of shows, like, first off, I'm sure you've probably seen the picture of this school, you know, with the students. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can find it. I'm just going to search for Georgia school Hannah Walters. And let's see what it looks like here. Are they going to show it? Yes. Okay, here we go. Georgia school with large crowds. Okay. Let me turn on my monitor. Basically, this was the famous picture right here. This one. All these kids in this fucking hallway, jammed closely together with no masks on, right? Spreading viruses back and forth between each other. Right. That's what Hannah Walters and her friends put on Twitter, and that's what they got suspended for. Now, kind of shows that basically it's not possible to have in-person schooling in this country, you know, because if you're not going to enforce a fucking mask policy, then there's already, you know, then you're going to get the spread of the disease, right? And apparently it's already happened. Something like after the first day of school in this high school that this girl went to in Georgia, apparently 4 of the kids have already tested positive, and one of the administrators has already tested positive, and they're going to end up shutting it down. And it's just like, well, there you go. You know, you could have enforced a fucking mask policy like everywhere else in the goddamn world, but since we don't want to do that because the fucking Republicans have politicized wearing a mask because they're assholes, right, now we don't have that, you know, now we can't have in-person schooling anymore. And it's like, it's not like the shit's impossible. Number one, you know, high schools enforce a dress code already. Okay, they already do it. And all you gotta do is like, oh, you're not wearing a mask, you get sent home. That's it. And that's all they gotta do, and they can keep transmission to a fucking minimum. They don't want to do that because wearing a mask has become politicized, thanks to the conservatives and Republicans out there. So the school district doesn't want to piss people off, so they say, okay, well, wearing a mask is not mandatory. Well, if it's not mandatory, then you're going to have people spreading the disease, and that's what's going to fucking happen. And it's just like, this is what happens when you put the anti-science crowd in charge of disease control, you know. I mean, other countries on Earth managed to get around this. You know, Japan, for example, didn't have any lockdown measures at all. They didn't stop people from working. You know, they canceled school for a little while, and then they sent the kids back to school. And it's because everybody in Japan wore a fucking mask. Everybody in Japan wore a mask. And they made it mandatory. You had to wear a mask. And guess what? They don't have the massive fucking outbreak that we have. They don't have 164,000 people dead from the pandemic. In fact, let me look up, you know, because I didn't write down, let's see, coronavirus deaths, right? Because we gotta look this up every time we do a live stream. How many are dead now? 162,000 confirmed in the United States. And please keep in mind that this is a low number. There are probably tens of thousands of more who are actually dead because of this pandemic that were not reported as such. You know, because we're not getting accurate numbers from places like Florida, and we're also not counting people who die at home and never end up getting tested, you know, because they don't go to the fucking people who like stay home and die at home and don't get tested because they don't have health insurance and they never go to the hospital or whatever, so they never get tested. They don't get counted, right? Because that's the kind of country we live in. We live in a country where if you don't have health insurance and you go to the hospital, it'll end up costing you thousands and thousands of dollars. And some people make that choice. Some people say, I can't afford it and I'm not going to go and bankrupt my family. It's more important my family has a roof over their heads than me living or dying. And thus we don't have an accurate count. It's probably closer to 200,000 of actual deaths. But, you know, we are rapidly approaching 200,000 actual deaths ourselves, you know, countable, verifiable deaths. I mean, my last stream was about 11 days ago, and at that time it was 154,000. So 9,000 people have died in 11 days. So roughly, you know, what does that come to? About 4,000 a month, right? And we're at 162,000, so give it another 5 months, you know, we're going to be hitting close to that 200,000 month, you know, right around December, that'll be a nice Christmas gift for us all. You know, Merry Christmas, here's 200,000 people dead. That's what's going to happen. I mean, you'd think that it's not going to just end with 2020. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going pretty much indefinitely now until they get a vaccine for it. It's basically going to keep going. And while every other country on Earth has gotten a handle on it, we haven't. We haven't because of conservatives. Right? Keep that in mind. Okay? The reason why this shit is still going on is because conservatives. Because of the anti-vax people, because of the people that don't trust science, because the people who think that wearing a seatbelt and shit like that is tyranny, right? These are all the people that, you know, because the people that don't want to take the slightest, the smallest of protective measures in order to stop the spread of this virus. You know, because of that, this is why we're in this fucking mess right now, right? This is why the economy can't reopen. You know, people are talking about the economy and how it's going to collapse. You know, it has collapsed, and how we're facing a fucking, you know, we're now facing this eviction crisis. You know, and our government and you know, the president and the Congress, they can't get their shit together enough to get a stimulus bill going. You know, they all just fucking went home right? They all went on vacation. They all went home, and all that stuff. And they didn't pass another stimulus bill. No matter how shitty the bill was, people need it. Doesn't matter how shitty it is. It is, and it's pretty fucking shitty. The bill that they were coming up with. It's like nothing. They're reducing the stimulus, for the unemployment. Like it's $600. They're reducing it down to like 200 if the Republicans get their way. They're going to give us all another $1,200 check, but only if you make a certain amount of money, and then it's no guarantee that, you'll even get it, because, I mean, most of the people that were entitled to get the other $1,200 check never even got that in the fucking first place. It's a mess, but they couldn't even do that, and now Donald Trump is trying to do executive orders that are not going to fucking happen because it is not within the president's power to cut the payroll tax. That was one of the things he wanted to do. He wanted to cut the payroll tax. Right, so that people have, more money in their pockets or whatever. He can't do that. That one will not be enacted. It will not be enacted because it is not within the president's power to cut taxes. He can't just randomly cut taxes all by himself. Sorry, it's not going to happen. It's bullshit. And then there's other ones like he wanted to make the um, unemployment thing at $400, but that's like a voluntary thing that the states have to sign on to, and they're not going to do it because the states don't have any money. So it's like the shit's not going to happen without Congress. And it's like, and the thing is, I applaud Trump for this, because the reason, now keep in mind, the reason why Trump is doing this because he knows he's going to get stomped in the election if shit doesn't turn around. It doesn't matter how many fucking, how much of your cult of personality loves you or whatever. People aren't going to vote for your ass if they're homeless, right? If they got no money and they blame you for it. So that's why he's doing this. He's doing these executive orders that he passed earlier today, because he's desperate and shit like that. But, his executive orders are not going to fucking do anything because half of them they cannot, they can't be enacted. They can't be enacted because the president cannot control spending, It's like basically, him making an executive order to have it be always sunny outside. This is shit that he can't control. So fucking, too bad. So now it's like, now we're just basically waiting for Congress to get their fucking shit together, right? And it's not happening, one way or fucking another. And, blame who you want to blame. I mean, I blame the Republicans because it's their fault, because they want to nerf it. Because they do. Mitch McConnell doesn't really give a shit about people. He wants to fucking reduce it to $200 a month and all this other shit. And really his big thing is that he wants to get a liability protection for employers. That's what he wants. He wants more than the actual stimulus. He wants to tie it to a liability protection so that people cannot sue their employers for not taking sufficient, safety precautions. That's what he really wants. That's what he's really after. So he doesn't really give a shit what's actually in the bill as long as he gets that. And the Democrats, for their part, are actually fighting for people. They're trying to make it so that we get, the $600 keeps going at the fucking minimum. They want to give us another $1,200 stimulus. They want to make all these other, programs and stuff and give people more tax breaks and make it, if you have dependents, then you get like a $1,500 tax break and all this other shit. And, Republicans aren't going for it. So it's like, blame who you want to fucking blame, but I myself am blaming the people that are trying to screw us and not the people who are trying to fucking help us out. Right? So, anyhow, but, the practical effect of all of this, right, is that shit is not getting done. Shit's not getting done. People are gonna have to fend for themselves. And, basically we're all fucked, So, anyway, this kind of brings us here. There was a story that came out a little while ago, right? Because why is this happening, right? Why is it that every other country on Earth has a national testing strategy, has managed to get a hold of all of this, and we haven't, right? And what's really happening here is, well, all the other countries have a strategy, right? A national testing strategy, right? A national pandemic strategy in order to help people to get hospitals the correct PPE, in order to get, tests into people's hands and all that other stuff, right? We didn't have that. The Fed basically went to the states and said, "You're on your own." Back in April, right? Back when like end of May, beginning of April, when shit really started to hit the fan, and it became obvious that we were going to have to shut down. The federal government went to the states and basically said, "You are responsible for getting your own supplies. You are responsible for enacting your own lockdown measures." Blah 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 blah. Right? And they didn't get any help. Why is that? Well, it turns out, according to, let me open up this link here. Right. A story came out of Vanity Fair where apparently Jared Kushner was put in charge of the national pandemic plan, right? Because I don't know if you've noticed, Jared Kushner is pretty much doing everything important in the government nowadays. He's in charge of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, right? That's Jared Kushner. He's basically in charge of fucking everything. Donald Trump is not doing shit. He's sending it all to Jared Kushner, and since that's why nothing's getting done, because Jared fucking Kushner is in charge, and he's basically a rich kid who's never really done any real work in his entire life, and that's why he's so fucking incompetent. But anyway, apparently he came up with a plan, right? And they were starting to, enact something. And yeah, it might have been shitty and incompetent or whatever, but it would have been something. And the decision was made, somebody on his team made the observation, apparently, that at the time this was happening, the coronavirus was hitting blue states harder. And why don't they just not do anything? And then they can use this to their advantage when the election comes by saying the blue states were incompetent and got everybody killed. And that was the idea, is that they were going to use this for their political... They were trying to use the pandemic outbreak to their political advantage, and they were going to blame Democrats and blame Democratic governors, right? Which is, now, I don't know about you. When I hear this is 100% believable to me. It sounds exactly like something that we would see from the Trump White House. I wouldn't be surprised if this came from Donald Trump himself, to be honest. If not him, then at least one of his close advisors, maybe somebody like Sebastian Gorka or Stephen Miller. This has Stephen Miller written all over it. Now, I have no proof because they actually haven't named who it was that came up with this bright idea, right? But it sounds like Stephen fucking Miller to me. I don't know. I'm probably wrong, right? I don't want to say it's him because that's like slander and shit. So I don't know if it actually was him, but I would not be surprised if it turned out to be him. Anyway, somebody decided that was a great idea, and then lo and behold, the national testing strategy was scrapped, right? And that's what they did. They turned around and they said, okay, the governors are on their own. You're in charge of your own pandemic response. And then they started doing shit like confiscating PPE from people. I don't know if you remember that. We actually talked about this when it was happening. They were confiscating PPE. They were basically intercepting, like a state would get a shipment of it, and then they would intercept it at the fucking hospital or at the airport or whatever, and then turn around and sell it, right? There were reports of Jared Kushner's team basically confiscating PPE and then selling it to the highest bidder, stuff like that. Stuff would get redirected to Donald Trump's fucking political allies, so shipments of PPE would get intercepted from Colorado and then get sent to Florida, right? Stuff like that because the governor of Florida was kissing Trump's ass, and that there are all kinds of news stories about that, right? After this started happening, and it's like, wow, to think that, you know, we could have avoided all of that. And think about how many people, you know, how many lives would have been saved if that didn't actually happen. If that, you know, and it starts making sense now, you know, like, because it sounded like when all of that shit was happening, you know, kind of sounded surreal. It sounded like, you know, every day was like an Onion article, almost. Right, and I remember thinking, I'm like, God, why are these people so fucking incompetent? And does this happen all the time when there's a pandemic? You know, this is what I was thinking. I'm like, is this just how the government runs? Like, you know, they're just like incompetent. They just fucking have no clue what the fuck they're doing, and they're just backstabbing and all this other shit. And then you find out, no, it's not like that at all. It's only because they were doing it on purpose because they wanted to fuck the blue states. And they wanted the death count to be higher in blue states so they could use that during the election. And what they didn't count on, because they're fucking morons, they didn't understand, because they don't understand science, because these are Republicans and they're fucking idiots, they didn't get that, you know, a virus doesn't care about your fucking political affiliation, doesn't care about what political party you're in, and if they didn't stop the spread of it, then it was going to spread to the red states. And now the red states have numbers which are comparable to the blue states. You know, right now, you know, it's like you're seeing a very close, there's something like 8,000 cases or deaths in Texas, and then like 8,500 in Florida. Well, there's only like 10,000 deaths in California. That's really not that far off. You know what I mean? It's like they've caught up pretty well. Yeah, maybe for those first couple of months they were way behind the curve, but the curve never fucking flattened and it caught up with them, you know. So I don't know, like you were seeing shit like this. So this was a nice little segue here. Let me go into my where's my drive here? Blah 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 blah. Hey, how come I'm not seeing my fucking thumb drive? So give me a second, you guys. I just need to look at my thumb drive here. Give me 1 minute. Pictures, desktop, blah blah blah, recent files. Network. Oh, wonder why I'm not. Give me a second, guys. I have a thumb drive with some pictures that I want to show to y'all, and I am not seeing it in my drive. So, what happened to my pictures? Where is it? Is it down here? Did I even put this thing in here? Oh shit, maybe I didn't put it in there at all. Oh, that's because it's right here in front of me. Ha 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 ha. I knew that. Let me just attach this to my computer. Just gotta find a, Sorry guys, I'm in a very, very tight little room here. You can hear stuff knocking over and all that, but that's okay. This will just take a moment. And let's see. There we go. All right. There we go. Okay, perfect. So, oh shit, my monitor just died. Sorry, technical difficulties. There it goes. Okay. You know, I think I really just need to fix my setup here. There we go. All set, all set. That's alright. I kind of needed a break anyway, because my hand was like hurting and all that. No, don't scan the drive for threats. Stupid fucking computer. Let's see. Bring that over there. We still streaming? Yeah, we are. Okay. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Let me just open up my drive here. USB drive. So I have here some memes that I want to show you guys. Let's do extra large. And pull this over here. All right. So this brings us to this meme. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Did I save this one? I better have saved it. Ah, here we go. Here we go. Let me turn on my left monitor. So here's one that I wanted to share with you guys. You can kind of read this, kind of mostly sort of, I hope. And basically what this is was a meme that was circulated early in the pandemic. Right? Let me just reduce that just a little. Early in the pandemic. So this was right around, I think this was right around April or May. And you started seeing lots of these things, on right-wing Twitter and right-wing Facebook and Reddit and stuff. And it's a favorite meme among the right-wingers to try to blame shit on blue states. The blue states are run all shitty. There's this narrative that places like California and Michigan and New York or whatever, and especially cities like Detroit and Chicago are basically hellhole, third world hellholes where there's all this crime and stuff. And this is funny because this reminded me when I read this story about the Kushner team basically 86ing the national testing strategy. It reminded me of these memes I was seeing of people posting shit like this. It's funny, and it's kind of makes you think that maybe there was a coordinated effort among all of this stuff. Where they're sitting here saying like, oh yeah, look, according to this, it's like, oh, California and New York, they've got 10 times the fucking like cases that we have here in Texas and Florida. They have all these deaths here. Look, we're like, their mortality rate is twice what we've got here and all this other stuff. This one has not aged very well. Not at all in the slightest. So I want to show you guys here. Let's look up, coronavirus deaths. And let's look up here. So here's California. 10,364, right? Our meme said that at the time, Florida had about 1,000. Here's where Florida is today. 8,185. Let's look up Texas. Because they also said Texas had like none, it was only like 1,500. Oh, look at that. 8,961. Not that far away from California. Not really. I mean, this is within 1,000, and you get 1,000 people a day. Pretty much the same. I mean, gee, that's funny how that happened. I guess at the time, it was like, oh, all this like fucking. Here, let's go back to the meme here. Yeah, at the time it was like, oh, look how far ahead they are than us. Yeah, now it's essentially the same fucking thing. And it's like, well, that's what happens when you don't understand science. Right. So yeah, this meme has not aged very well. Not at all. I want to show you a couple other ones that have not aged very well either. Here is another very funny one. At the beginning, when, right-wing media was saying that this was all just a, overhype kind of thing. It was all just Chicken Little running around with his head cut off. The sky is falling, whatever. Sean Hannity saying that we have currently 0 deaths. I think this was like right when the whole thing started. Oh, we don't need to lock down, blah, blah, blah. We've got 0 deaths. February 27th. Yeah. Wow. This one has not aged at all very much at all, has it, Sean Hannity? I don't know. If only it was, actually real. Wow. Here we go. Here goes fucking, Laura Ingraham claiming that the whole thing is just a big liberal hoax. Dems still panic because they can't fight Trump. Yeah, the Democrats just created the pandemic, as something to, here we go, February 27th, the same day. Yeah, they just created all of this because they don't have anything to really fight Trump on, which was bullshit. This one has not aged at all very well either. What else we got here? Here's something from Sarah Silverman that I saw on Twitter that actually I think was pretty true. I think she kind of hit the nail on the head here. The people take to the streets, he militarizes the streets. American youth speak out against him on TikTok, he bans TikTok. People register to vote, he delays the election. Yeah, I think she hit it right on the head right there, man. I mean, goddamn, I don't really even give a shit about Sarah Silverman, to be honest. I don't really care about her. I think she's funny, whatever, right? But she definitely fucking read that correctly. that's, that's like, goddamn, maybe I'm gonna have to start watching her movies and shit. Let's see, what else we got here? This one has also not aged well. So you started to see for a little while at the beginning of the pandemic, people saying shit like, oh, here's one comparing the outbreak to the H1N1 virus. Look at this. U.S. cases, 68 million. U.S. deaths, 12,469. Panic level, totally chill. Coronavirus, 1,329. Deaths, 38. Panic level, mass hysteria. Gee, it's almost like they weren't the same virus at all. And I don't know, man. I wish it was only 38. I seriously wish there was only 38 deaths. I mean, has not aged well at all. I hope, I don't know. Let's see. I think I might make this a weekly thing where we kind of go back and look at memes that have not aged well. What did I save this one for? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Liberal media fantasy. The United States is totally unprepared for this pandemic. The country's best and worst prepared for an epidemic. Look at this. The United States most prepared. The UK most prepared. The Netherlands most prepared. Wow. Too bad in real life, all of these countries have way lower numbers as far as deaths come than we do. I don't know. Did not age well. I can just say, I mean, hindsight is 2020. I kind of hope whoever posted this is still not buying into this horse shit. Here we go. You run a greater risk of dying if you know Hillary Clinton than you do by contracting the C virus. 18,000 people have died of the flu this year alone in the U.S. So far, there have been 21 deaths attributed to the virus. 47 people have turned up on Clinton Deadpool so far, which makes you more than 200% likely to die if you are friends with Hillary. Are you triggered yet? Yeah. If it was only 21 deaths. First, this is a special kind of right-wing crazy. The Clinton murder list. If you guys don't know what that basically is, there's this conspiracy theory out there that let's turn this monitor off here. There's this conspiracy theory out there, right, that the Clintons are responsible for the deaths of multiple people, and it's total fucking bullshit. There's basically no basis in reality to it whatsoever. They're taking people who have died of cancer, and then a guy died in a car crash, and blah blah blah. It's the thing is, anybody who is relatively famous and well connected is going to know tons and tons of people, and the more people the more people who are going to die. And there's the idea, the Clinton murder list is this idea that these are all people who, one reason or another, have crossed Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and have had them murdered. And it's just complete fucking horseshit. I don't know. Maybe we should do a video on right-wing conspiracy theories. That might be a fun one to do a live stream on, where we can talk about these wacky fucking things, and because it's kind of fun to debunk stuff like that, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I used to be really into conspiracy theories and that kind of thing, and I kind of got out of them because it's, first off, it's fantasy, right? There really is no truth to any of this shit. And it's kind of a waste of time. It's there's important things in the world that you should be, thinking that you should be worrying about. There's actually real problems out there that require your attention. And if you're like spending some time, spending too much time with like stupid fucking unprovable bullshit that has no basis in fucking reality, you're just kind of like wasting time. It's like, why, you know, even kind of talking about it just sort of contributes to the mystique around it. And, it's like, man, we have actual fucking problems to worry about. We have things like global warming, right? We have fascists taking over the fucking country. We have, like, we have 25% of all small businesses about to go out of business in this country. We have other fucking things to worry about than the goddamn Clinton murder list that doesn't even really exist. So, anyway, I don't know. Maybe we'll make a video about it, because it is interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's interesting to think about these kinds of things. Let me see. I had a couple more memes I wanted to go through here. Here we go. This one is also another one which has not aged well. This is the 10-year challenge between Barack Obama and Donald Trump. The 10-year challenge. Let's see. Unemployment rate, 9.9 in 2009. Okay. Versus 2019. So, first off, one thing to remember here is that 2009 was 1 year out of the giant Great Recession in 2008 that was caused by, during the Bush administration, by the collapse of the housing market. So Barack Obama kind of inherited this giant mess the same way that Joe Biden is going to inherit Trump's mess. And just like Barack Obama, Joe Biden is going to get blamed for it, but that's a subject for another time. So that was the fallout. And, Republicans and conservatives and shit like to blame Obama for coming into office with a 9.9 unemployment rate. Right? They like to pretend that somehow him getting elected caused that. So then they take, Trump's unemployment rate, 3.9. Wow. Guess what the unemployment rate is today, folks? Wait, let me look this up. I've actually got it here. The unemployment rate right now is, I got it written down, 10.2. That's what the unemployment rate is today. Oh my god. And this meme probably only came out a couple of months ago. Probably came out around December or so. Has not aged well at all. And like I've been saying, basically the only fucking thing Donald Trump had going for him was the economy. That was pretty much fucking it. And now he doesn't even have that. And the thing is, it's all, in that regard, the economy collapsing, that's all his fault. He could have stopped this, he could have, because, when you're the president, you have the bully pulpit, right? And even though you can't just willy-nilly enact laws because you're not a dictator, because you're not a king, what you can do is, with the largest, basically, media presence in the world, the president wants something, he can get it known this is what he wants. That's the bully pulpit is what they call that. He can basically get up there and rile against Congress and rile against the other party and say, we need this, 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 and this. I want this bill in front of my desk. I don't care. And he could have done all of the things that all the other countries out there did. He could have insisted that we get some real stimulus out there. He could have put in some real practical solutions that really helped people. Like I said, for example, how they did in England, where they nationalized people's wages. They said, okay, we're just going to give you 70% of your wages if you don't fire people. If you don't lay people off, we're going to pay them 70% of their wages and they can stay home, whatever. He could have done that. He could have done what they did in Canada and said, okay, I want everybody to have $2,000 a month for the duration of the pandemic. He could have done all of these different things. He didn't do shit. Okay, you got to keep that in mind. Donald Trump didn't do shit. He went golfing. He went golfing because he didn't really actually fucking care. And as the pandemic was developing, what he did instead was deny that it was a problem. He denied that it was happening. He kept telling us that it was all, it was going to go away as soon as summer came around. We have the highest testing, we have the lowest numbers ever. There was even a part, where there was like 47 people on a fucking cruise ship. You remember that? And he didn't want to let them back into the country because it would double the number of active cases we had. Remember that shit? This is what Donald Trump did. He basically just denied it, tried to push it away, and just hoped that it would go away. And it didn't go away. And think about that. Like, why would he do that? Why would he react that way? Because that's how rich people react to shit. People like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a guy who's never had to work in his entire fucking life for anything. He's never had to actually put in any effort for anything whatsoever. His niece made a book, basically, in his niece's book, Mary Trump or whatever, that just came out. She claims that he paid somebody to take the SATs for him. Now that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But really think about it. It's Donald Trump. Does it really sound that ridiculous? No, it sounds completely fucking believable to me. Right? I believe it. I believe it because he's exactly the kind of guy that would do that. Can you imagine Donald Trump as an 18-year-old? This fucking sociopath as an 18-year-old. He must have been the biggest fucking dick ever. You ever meet like especially when you were a kid, like when you're that age, you ever meet a guy who's got like a trust fund baby or something? I used to know 2 or 3 of them because I live in kind of around a pretty rich area, so occasionally I would run into these people as a young person, these sort of trust fund babies who like have it made and they know it, and they're basically, when you're like rich at that age and that all you got to do is the most minimum amount of effort, and then once you turn 21 or whatever, you're gonna get like all the money your parents socked away from you, and you just have to not be a complete fuck up, and so you just have to like not screw up so bad that they disown you. You basically just don't give a fuck about anything. And you meet guys like that, all they give a shit about is partying. All they care about is fucking getting wasted and getting laid and having fun, and they don't give a fuck. They don't actually try very hard when it comes to things like school. They don't really get, it's like if their parents make them get a job or whatever, they'll put in the most like minimum amount of fucking effort they have to, right? Because they don't care, because they know that once they come of age, they're going to inherit all this cash. That's Donald Trump's fucking personality, except he never outgrew it, because he knew that he was going to be like rich, I mean, goddamn. And so, yeah, paying somebody to take the fucking SATs for him, I believe that 100%, right? I mean, I would like to see his SAT scores. I bet you he couldn't even tell you right now what they were. And if you were to ask him what did you score in the SAT, I bet you every single adult watching this video right now could tell you what they scored on the SATs. Even if you're like 65 and you took them fucking like 40 years ago and shit. I bet you remember what it is. I bet you $1 million Donald Trump doesn't know what it was because he didn't take them. So, yeah, his entire life, every time he got in trouble, he basically just paid somebody to make it go away. His casino goes out of business, his fucking dad bails him out. Gets a girl pregnant or some shit like that, probably just pays her off. Whatever. That's exactly the kind of fucking thing that he would do, right? I'm not saying that he did that, because that would be slander, so I'm not saying he did that. I'm saying that's the kind of shit he would do. And, that's the way he would react. And so it doesn't surprise me at all in the slightest that when this problem came up, that he couldn't, that's how he just tried to pretend that it went away. So the pandemic comes up, it's not something that he can just solve. So what does he do? He just bullshits people. That's what he did. He pretended it wasn't a problem. He started fucking like getting these stupid ass quack cures, talking about hydroxy fucking chloroquine and like using UV lights to fucking bathe people on the inside and all this other shit like that. I don't know if you guys remember all that, when he had those daily briefings. That's what he was fucking doing, right? All of it, and hoping that it would just go away, hoping that it would pass away, the way that any like flu fucking season does. And it didn't do that because, this is not a flu. And now he's fucked. And that's like, man, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And this is what happens when you get bad leadership, when you fucking like let one of these people, like this with this type of like inherent character flaw in the highest fucking office in the land. We all saw it coming. Everybody on the left, who was like holding their nose and voting for Hillary Clinton, we all told you this was what was going to fucking happen. All right? Seriously, me, myself, personally, I said this would happen. Go back. I have videos, right? Told you that this was happening because this is the kind of guy this person is, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. Have you ever worked for a boss like Donald Trump? Then you fucking know what, how incompetent they are. I've had a boss like him before. Some rich asshole who's never fucking done anything in his entire fucking life. Yeah, right? And I could have told you right now, these guys, they don't, and here's the thing about it is no matter how badly they fuck up, they're never held accountable for anything because they're rich. Donald Trump fucking is an incredibly awful leader, breaks the law in several different ways, gets impeached, gets away with it. Pretty much every single way that people have tried to hold him accountable, he's gotten away with it. Because he's got, people sucking up to him because he's rich. Now he's got people sucking up to him because he's Trump. And, like, he has this base. He has the fucking Republican base, attached to him by the fucking asshole. Right? Because they love him because, because his fucking base are a bunch of goddamn morons who don't understand how badly these guys fucking him. And they won't until he's out of office and the goddamn economy collapses for real. I don't know. One other thing I wanted to talk about here, was, he's banning TikTok, right? So that's a big thing that's kind of happening in the news right now. Why is Donald Trump banning TikTok, right? Because, this kind of brings us back to that tweet I showed from Sarah Silverman. Right, where he's basically, like why is he doing it? Why is he trying to ban TikTok? He's put out there that he will ban it if it doesn't get sold to Microsoft and all this other stuff, and he wants a cut of the deal. He wants a cut of the sale to go to the United States government, which is unprecedented. That's bullshit. I mean, the government already gets a cut. It's called taxes. Right? So, but no, he wants an actual cut of the sale to go to the Treasury. It's like, fuck out of here. That's not going to happen. Because it's not like TikTok hasn't been banned in some countries. It's been banned in Indonesia, right? And then I think it was banned in Bangladesh. But the reason it was banned in those countries was because of pornography, right? Because those are, Indonesia and Bangladesh, they're very strict Muslim countries, and pretty much, any picture of a woman not wearing a fucking burqa is considered pornography, and that's why they were banned there. India banned it because of there was a border skirmish between India and China where 20 Indian soldiers got banned, and in retaliation they banned, something like 59 Chinese apps or whatever. It was part of like economic sanctions kind of thing. Why does Trump want to ban it? Now there are legitimate security concerns over TikTok, right? You're seeing lots of countries talking about this because apparently the parent company of TikTok, I can't remember what they're called, but what it is they're saving biometric data, right? And the law in China is that a company can't refuse to not share data with the Chinese government. So people are afraid that this app will scan people's, irises and biometric data, their fingerprints, their irises, stuff like that. This information will get its hands on the Chinese government, and it's so if somebody who actually has an important position in the United States government or military or whatever could get their biometric data stolen by, it could end up in the hands of the Chinese who could use it for nefarious purposes. And that's a legit security concern. Right. But the way you solve that is you just say, okay, if you're in the military, you're not allowed to have TikTok. Problem solved. Or, if you work for a sensitive company like Lockheed Martin or Boeing or some shit like that, you're not allowed to have TikTok. That's all, because what is TikTok going to do with, the biometric data of some 13-year-old in fucking, Oklahoma somewhere who's making 10-second videos? I don't even, what the fuck is TikTok even for? It's like you make little 10-second videos of people doing stupid shit. That's it. That's what it's for. It's like YouTube but 10 seconds long. I don't even understand TikTok. I don't even use it. But, it's like, it's just, here's the thing about all that, right? All social media collects personal information on people. All of it. Every bit of social media you log into. Pretty much all websites out there do this anyway. They all put tracking cookies on your machines that, track where you go, and then they can serve you content specific advertising. So you ever, like, for example, go and search for, buy a new pair of shoes out there or something, and then a couple of days later you see ads on the internet for shoes. You ever see that? That happened to me once. Me and my wife went to Universal Studios here in Los Angeles, right? And it was pretty cool. And then for a couple of weeks afterwards, I kept seeing ads online for Universal Studios. And it was like, gee, it's almost like they were tracking my purchasing. It's almost like, Visa sold my fucking my purchasing habits to, somebody who has now tracked that to my IP address and is now serving me targeted advertising based on shit that I buy. It's almost like that happened. I mean, gee, it's kind of funny, and you think about, like, all of that type of information is out there anyway. If you live in the modern world and you use the internet and you use credit cards to buy things and you use search engines and you use cell phones, which are fucking listening to you even when they're turned off, even when you're, like, well, not turned off, but even when you're, like, logged out or whatever, you're being tracked, right? So what do they do with that fucking information? They use it for advertising. That's what they're fucking doing, right? And if you have real concerns about that, then all you need to do is pass some laws about what kinds of information they can and can't collect. And I'd be behind that. I'm behind that 100%, Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have targeted fucking advertising. Maybe we shouldn't have companies, collecting and cataloging your fucking biometric data, and your browsing habits and your purchasing habits. And, I mean, there's even, like, so far as, like, your phone recording what you fucking say. Where does that go? Right? I mean, no company has admitted that that's actually happening, to my knowledge. Maybe they have, and personally, I don't see how they could, because I don't see how they could store, 24 hours worth of conversational data. Like, you know what I mean? I don't see how they could store all of that. They would have to have, like, massively giant storage facilities out there. But who knows? Maybe they do. I mean, shit, technology just advances by leaps and bounds, and, hard drive space is not that fucking expensive anymore. So it's like, right? Like, and they have advanced algorithms that can like, voice recognition shit, and who even fucking knows out there? I mean, the thing is, 10 years ago I would have said no way, but nowadays, the shit's so advanced now you can't even keep up with it anymore. So maybe they are actually fucking, like, recording what you say, and, like, but what are they, so why don't we put a stop to that instead of just banning one app, right? And really, the real life is because, Donald Trump really wants to ban TikTok in real life because the users of TikTok basically trolled his Tulsa rally. If you remember that last month, he had his big rally that, and what it was is that a bunch of TikTok users went on and, like, reserved seats, and then they never showed up. So that's why they thought 1 million people were going to go to that rally, and it turned out only about 6,500 people went. And, you know, that embarrassed the shit out of him, and so now he wants to get back at TikTok. So you got to remember, you know, Donald Trump doesn't really give a fuck about, you know, TikTok stealing your biometric data. He doesn't really give a shit that it's like, you know, it could actually be a real security concern. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care about any of that, you know. He cares about the fact that the people who use it fucked him over, and now he wants revenge. You know, so keep that shit in mind, right? You know, here's an actual real security concern that could really, you know, really be a company up to some nefarious shit. And we can't even get, you know, it's like, we can't even get, like, our fucking leaders to do anything about it unless it affects them personally. And it's like, he never would have gave a fuck about that whatsoever if that didn't happen. So maybe that's good. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we should all download TikTok and use it to troll Trump, and then maybe he will finally fucking ban it. Maybe that's how we have to work with people like Trump, is that we have to trick them into doing the right thing. You know, we have to, like, make it look like it's in their best interest to do the right thing, because apparently fucking the stick doesn't work very well, so maybe we got to try the carrot now. Anyhow, I had a bunch of other shit I wanted to talk about, but it's getting late. I don't know. I guess, hey, Raph, what's up, man? How you doing? Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm about to end it here anyway, because it's been about 2 hours. I guess it's time to close this off, so everybody out there, you know, stay safe, and, vote. Please vote. For the love of God, vote. I gotta say that at the end of every stream until the election comes. This is our chance. We can actually do something to help the country and to help people. Let me see. What did you say there, Raph? Trump also doesn't realize that his conservative voters prefer their survival over getting sick at an unneeded rally. Yeah, well, you know, I would say yes, they probably do. But they keep fucking showing up to him. But I don't know. You know, it is true that, yeah, that kind of thing is sort of like you can't rely. You know what it was? Okay, when 2016 came around, he got a massive boost in the media. You know, like they were showing him on TV constantly, all the time, every fucking day. I don't know if you guys remember. You know, CNN would do stuff like Hillary Clinton would be talking, and then they would cut away from Hillary Clinton to show a Trump rally before it even started, and they would broadcast an empty podium of a Trump rally. So he got like a ton of you know, ton of free media, you know, and it was even things like who are those fucking people on CNN that hate him? The two, like, I can't remember their name. There's like this talk show with these two people that, like, one of them, like, the guy's like a God, fuck, what were they called? They're like this married couple that have this show that they're like really anti-Trump, but in the beginning they like, you know what, this is gonna bug the shit out of me unless I look this up. I for the life of me, I can't remember this guy's name. I think I am like getting early onset of fucking dementia, because like because I would like remember this dude's name. Let's see, CNN talk show. What the fuck were they called? There was a list. Okay, you know what? I'm if I don't look this up, it's gonna bug me all fucking night. Current programming, early start, blah 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 blah. Give me 1 second. Anderson Cooper? No, not Anderson Cooper. God damn, what were they called? Are they on CNN or are they on MSNBC? Maybe they're on MSNBC. Hang on. MSNBC programs. Now, we're at the end of the stream. I could do this. Morning Joe. That's what it was. Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. That's what they're called. They, they're like really anti-Trump now. Yeah, thank you so much, Chupacabra Morgan Joe. Right, sorry. That's what they were called. They really, at the beginning in 2016, they had Trump on all the time. He would call into the show. They were like, you know, friendly with him and stuff. And it was only after like he became a very extremely bad president and an extremely bad leader that Joe Scarborough kind of turned against him. Joe Scarborough is a fucking conservative. He's like a Republican and shit. In fact, I think he used to be a senator or something like that. you know. But anyway, yeah, he got like tons and tons and tons of free media and, huge rallies. And he would have rallies with, 50, 60, 70,000 people in them and stuff. This time he doesn't have that around. This time that's not happening. It's because of the pandemic. You can't have huge rallies anymore. He's not getting the free media anymore. He doesn't have like that, kind of machine behind him. And I think more than anything, that's kind of like the biggest advantage, that we have. Like he can't capitalize on that free media he can't capitalize on that political machine any longer. And you can kind of see he's trying to do it. He's got like these events that he's trying to put on and stuff like that, and like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna give my acceptance speech in the Rose Garden, which is fucking illegal. Right, that's against the Hatch Act, stuff like that. He's like turning like official like presidential like duties into fucking like, campaign, like he's giving speeches and shit, and they're turning into fucking campaign rallies and stuff, and I think that's really hurting him pretty bad. And that's like one of the, I think really like without that buzz, like he can't generate that buzz. You know what I mean? He can't go state to state and like get all his people and get his base riled up. And I think without that, that's like takes away a major fucking advantage that he had. And I'm like, wow, if anything, that's maybe the silver lining here. That because I think without that right now, he'd probably be like, if things were okay and he had the and he was able to go out and do this and we didn't have the pandemic, he'd probably be like beating Biden in the polls, probably. Right. I think that when they have their debate, it's probably going to swing back a little bit because Joe Biden is going to get creamed in the fucking debates. If I was Joe Biden, I would just not go. It's like, sorry, I'm not showing up to the debate. And I would just cite health concerns. Say, yeah, I don't trust Donald Trump to not spread coronavirus to me. Like, that's what I would say if I was, Biden. Because it seems like he's staying ahead in the polls by just shutting the fuck up. And, like, letting, the idiot fucking bury himself. And I see no reason why. It seems like whenever Joe Biden opens his fucking mouth, he, like, blows it, says something really stupid. Right? And the best advice I can give him is just to, like, Operation Shut the Fuck Up. Is, like, what he should do. Now, personally, I think that it's probably past the point of no return, but, I don't want to get invested in this election again like I did last time. I'm not going to, I wake up on fucking November 6th and things didn't go my way, I'm not going to be, like, devastated by that shit again. So I think I've kind of learned my lesson in that regard, to not become too emotionally involved in any given election. It's more of just you do what you can, and if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted, then oh well. Hey guys, so it has been 2 hours. Thanks you guys, by the way, Chupacabra and Raph. Thanks you guys for coming and jumping in and seeing me and stuff. But I really do need to call it a night here because I gotta get up in the morning. Kind of early, get to work. So, but before I do that, I will give my ending spiel here. By the way, if you guys do have things you want me to talk about, go ahead and just put it in the comments of this or pretty much any other video. You know what I mean? Like, you could just take any video I have and make a comment on it, and I'll see it. because it emails me and stuff. So if you have something like suggestions for videos or subjects that you like me to speak about during a live cast like this or something like that, yeah, I'm always open. I'm always open to suggestions and things. Let's see. Let me just open up all of my stuff here. UCD video. Okay, and then also my Instagram. All right, guys. Here is the end of the broadcast, end of the stream. Ending credits or whatever. First, let's look at what we got here. We actually made a lot of progress today. Kind of did a lot of this section. This is turning out really well. I think what I'm going to do with this after this is done is make a print of it. Like the scrolls that I make. I'm going to actually turn this into one of those. So if you guys like it, you can, always buy one. Right. So I think maybe we could probably get 2 more streams out of this. We'll fill it down to around here, and then I'll put some like evil symbols around it and stuff. So it's coming pretty good. So let me show you my different social media. This is my DeviantArt website. So if you like my artwork, please check me out on DeviantArt. I've been putting a lot of comics up here lately, but I've got all kinds of stuff hanging out here. Usually this is just artwork. And I also link my videos here as well. So please come check me out there. I do have a Patreon that nobody joined, but that's okay. But if you like what I do, please consider supporting me on Patreon. At $1 a month, I will give you early access to videos and also give you a shout out. If you give me $10, I will do a video on the subject of your choice. So you want me to do a video on, armadillo drag racing? I will make that video. And I'll also draw something in black and white for you. An example would be something like this. I would draw something like this for you for $10 a month if you want it. And then also, at $20 a month, I'll give you a free choice of stuff from my Etsy shop and everything from the previous levels. Speaking of that, this is my Etsy shop. So if you don't want to join Patreon, but you still want to support me, this is another way that you can. I sell prints and things like that. These are all sort of coffee-stained prints of various different characters, monsters and stuff. I got one. These are Lovecraft ones. These are like Godzilla monsters. And then I also sell comics here too. So just to kind of show you what these things look like. This one's actually pretty popular. This is supposed to be Azathoth from H.P. Lovecraft. And to kind of show you what it looks like in real life, here's one of these guys. So this is a coffee-stained print. They're about 11 by 17. Each one comes out a little different. I use coffee and things and tear them on the edges, and it marbleizes the paper and makes it kind of feel like leather afterwards, But so each one is like unique. And that's what I sell on my Etsy shop, mainly those, and I sell comics and some other shit like that. So if you like what I do and you don't want to join Patreon, you can support me in that way. I will put links to all of this stuff in the bottom. And here's me on Instagram. Instagram, I mainly put artwork, things like sketches and stuff that I don't put anywhere else. These are just sort of like little sketches that I do. Here's like doodles. Well, it's going to make me log in to see that, but whatever. You get the idea, Instagram. This is my other YouTube channel, UCD Videos, where I do game, movie, and toy reviews. Please check me out. I've been getting these Masters of the Universe Origins figures, which are the best things fucking ever. Right? They're like He-Man figures, but they have modern articulation, so I've been doing a lot of videos on those things. And I do like gaming live streams and stuff like that. So this is like non-political content, so if you want to see me talk about toys and video games and that kind of thing, please check me out on UCD Videos. And my last one is my webcomic, which is hawanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. And this is basically my webcomic that I put out roughly once a week. You know, been pretty good with that schedule. You know, this is the main thing. It's about ninjas and stuff like that, and then you know, it's kind of like ninjas, and it's a little ultra violent. It's also like a bit of a parody, that kind of thing. And then I also have my Dirty Kitchen comics over here. Thanks, asshole. Anyway, this is Dirty Kitchen. This is my Dirty Kitchen comics over here, which is much more, web comic-y sort of stuff. So anyway, please check me out on all of my different social media things. And thank you all so much for coming. I'll probably do another one of these in the middle of next week sometime. Probably, most likely Wednesday. So, thanks a lot, guys. Thank you, Cody, for coming, and Shoma, and Chupacabra. You guys are the reason why I keep doing this. You're all awesome. Thank you so much. Adios.